month's panel discussion will be moderated by Janique Bird, practicing professionals Dr. David Acey, T.M. Garrett, LaTanya Blankenship, and pre-professionals Lydia Warren, Abraham Williamson, and Montez Reed.
I'd like to open the discussion of HCBUs versus predominantly white institutions.
I'm also a proud alumnus of a HBCU, TSU University. One of my main reasons for going to TSU is because I saw School Days and a different world. And then my 11th grade year, I went on a college tour to Memphis. At the time, it was called Memphis State. And I went into an algebra class. It was like 300 people in there. I said, oh no, this is not for me. So it was either Clark Atlanta or TSU. And I ended up choosing TSU.
I attended initially Lemoyne College, HCBU, and I went there on an athletic scholarship way back in 1956. And I had no idea I was going to college. We didn't have any money. I grew up in Orange Mound, very poor. I was one of 6 in my family, the baby, and I worked all the time, but I was a pretty good athlete. Coach asked if I would play basketball with the Melrose team. I told him I couldn't because I had to work. I had to go to work. He said, if you play for me, I'll get you a scholarship to college. Sure, Coach, yeah. So anyway, we didn't win. We came in second, graduated from Melrose and forgot about it. Went to the swimming pool in Orange Mound, and guess who the manager was? The coach. And he said, you get on over to Lemoyne College, we have a scholarship for you. And that's where I initially enrolled at the HCBU. That time, the University of Memphis State was almost totally segregated. Anyway, I couldn't keep that scholarship up. So I went to the United States Army. And when I came back from the Army, I enrolled at Memphis State University, totally segregated, less than 100 black students. But I didn't quit. I got there and it was terrible. Like LaTanya just said, it was terrible. But I had been involved in the civil rights movement with the NAACP, had been around, was a little older than the other students, just got out of the Army. So I was determined to finish that school.
I'm not from here, so I didn't attend American college. I'm originally from Germany. That's where my funny accent comes from. And I had a tough school time, so I graduated, but I didn't go to college. I went to a kind of electric college for electrotechnicians, but I didn't really finish the second year. My life was kind of messed up for several years until at the age of 27 finally grasped what I did wrong. And I know firsthand how important it is to actually get a good education when you have the chance, when you're young, when it's easier to learn and to study than to do it later when you're 27 and clean up the mess that you left behind. So I ran a job recruitment company overseas, as Ms. Bird already said, and I tried to help other young people who had similar problems to clean it up earlier and give them chances that I didn't have.
I like to say Rose chose me and I did not choose Rose College because initially I was put on a wait list for Rose College for different reasons. And then I received a call that I received the Bunner Scholarship, which is a community service scholarship. And I also received other scholarships and that Rose was willing to pay most of my tuition. So basically, my mother told me, like, at the beginning of my senior year, we're going to the college that gives you the most money because we do not have money and we cannot afford loans. Rhodes gave me all of the money that I needed, and so Rhodes was my decision. Even though I had other schools such as Morehouse that I really wanted to go to, but Morehouse did not provide the financial aid that I needed, nor my family could not take on those loans. So Rhodes, although it was not my first or my second or third choice, ended up being my final choice. And I would say I'm pretty happy with the decision. There are things that I do regret, but for the most part, Rhodes has provided me with a lot of networking opportunities that I am very grateful for, and also Rhodes carries the name, especially in Memphis, that could open a lot of doors for me. So it was basically money chose my school for me.
My sister encouraged me to matriculate at Howard. She told me that if somebody with a Howard degree came across her desk, that she would hire them. And so that was enough for me to go. Also, I was attracted to the culture. I think, well, how many people in here have graduated from an HBCU? Or, okay. What I found is that alumni of HBCUs are the best recruiters. And the more folks that I talked to about it, the more they sold me on it. But once I got there, I had one professor who kind of summed it up. He said that at Howard and HBCUs generally, they treat black people not as the object of history, but as the subject of history. And that bore out in all of the classes from accounting to biology.
I was a professional musician and from the age of about 16 to 25, and then I decided that that might not be the best financial decision that one could make. So I attended community college and from there transferred to Smith College, which is an all-women's institution, which was incredibly empowering. I'd never had a setting where it was just females in a classroom. And from there, from community college, my advisor there had told me to apply to Smith College where they had financial assistance for students of non-traditional age, which I got a full scholarship there. And then from there, my advisor at Smith told me to look into the University of Virginia because they had sort of non-traditional focus in their musicology program. So yeah, that was my school experience, is just like, okay, what's next?
So our practicing professionals touched a bit upon the culture for their college experience. I'd like for you all to kind of expand on what that meant for you during your time of your time on campus.
Well, one of the things that stand out for me at TSU, my freshman year of college, one of my professors, we was reading The Coldest Winter Ever. And he was like, Sister Soldier. And he was like, I need to test you for something. I was like, what? He said, I think you might have dyslexia. And I said, you know, we heard about dyslexia because of Theo on The Cosby Show, ironically. And so I took the test and I ended up being dyslexic. But I could have let that stop me. But I went on ahead, finished, got 2 bachelors, and 1 master's in business administration with a concentration on marketing. But my love for students, I am part of Shelby County Schools. So when I see certain students who have certain characteristics that I have, I try to tell their parents, you know, you might need to get your child checked out. It's nothing, that is just a learning disability. We learn a little bit different. And most people who are dyslexic are very intelligent. Thank you.
Well, I had a great time at Lemoyne College then. And best thing that ever happened to me, I met my wife there. She was a student there. I also had the opportunity to meet Dr. Harrington, Marion Barrett, the mayor of D.C. for life. Had opportunity to meet with the NAACP group, Maxine Smith and others that was boycotting Goldsmith and segregation in the city at Lemoyne, and had an experience in the Army. And when I got out, I decided to go to Memphis State, as I mentioned, which was totally segregated. And I was on a mission for those young people who have adversities. Maybe my history will help you never to quit. If you can imagine being in a university of 20,000 students with less than 100 black students, no basketball players, no teachers, no anything, only African-American black people on campus and one picking up garbage and cutting the grass. So I just felt that I was paying full tuition and getting a part-time education. We couldn't get involved with SGA or anything. So I met my good friend James Pope, who had just got out of the Army, was attending Memphis State. And I told him there was something wrong with this. So right quick, I organized the first Black Student Association at Memphis State and began to demand equal justice from the administrators and everybody at that university. And we protested, we put our groups together, we demanded that they hire people in the bookstores and everywhere else, that they didn't want to do it. but we were persistent in it. Well, back then I had my big afro, had my one dashiki, and never had been afraid of white people. See, you can't be fearful and do anything that you need to do. All right, I knew we were doing the right thing, so we had a motto: as long as you're standing on truth, you're going to be all right. So anyway, I don't have time to go through everything, but we went to the bookstore and demanded that they hire students. They did. We went to the library and all other places and demanded that they hire black students. And we went to the basketball coach and demanded that they hire, in the administration, to recruit black players. And the first black players were A.C. Hilliard, who's now retired First Tennessee Bank president. He was the first basketball player. We had a racist coach named Spook Murphy. Anybody knows Spook Murphy? He was a spook. He said no nigger would play for him on the Memphis State football team. And long story short, we had one black player from Manassas named Stan Davis. He was a running back. When he got in the first game, the first kickoff, he ran a straight touchdown. So we recruited cheerleaders. They told us we couldn't dance. Black girls couldn't dance. So that was a joke. So we pushed them to start recruiting blacks. And we demanded an office space. And they told us they didn't have an office space at the whole campus. So we took the fourth floor of the University Center and made it into a Black Student Association headquarters. We demanded that we get our student activity fee that would come to us and not through them. And we got that taken care of. And we continued to push the university. And at the same time, we had to go to school, try to pass, and fight the university. It was actually a fight. Going into class, first day of classes, I purposely went a little late. And when I stepped in the door, the professor was up talking, and he looked at that door and everything got silent. 25 pair of eyes came to me. Now I saw a seat sitting by a white girl and one by a white guy. I said, well, I'm gonna sit by the white guy because I don't want to have to fight the first day, but I will. So these are kind of decisions you have to make on the moment. But I damn sure wasn't gonna sit in the back. I wasn't gonna do that. And anyway, I would make 80 on the test and they'd give me a 60. We had some openly racist professors. We had some few good ones, but most of them didn't treat us right at all. So we boycotted them openly. Went into the classroom doing registration with a sign, McNutt is a racist. I mean, it took some challenges to do that. And make a long story short, we wanted to bring some African Americans to the university. They had brought George Wallace out there and everybody else. So we wanted to bring Adam Clayton Powell or somebody, and they wouldn't do it. So after Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, we decided that next April, 1969, we would shut the university down, shut it down, and we shut the Memphis State down. 109 went to jail, charged everybody with trespassing, but we had some powerful lawyers, Ben Hooks, all the NAACP lawyers down there to get us out of jail. Some of those great souls, now on the city council, Janice Fuller Love, all of us were over there in jail. So it took me 6 years to get out of undergraduate, not because I was dumb, because I had to get those F's off of my transcript. But I tell you, if you committed, and I couldn't fail because the Orange Mountain community was dependent upon me to graduate, as well as my family being the first to go to college. I wasn't gonna let anything stop me. I was committed, I was determined, I didn't care what was gonna happen. And we were revolutionary. And I didn't need but 6 people to shut the university down. I needed 6. So James Polk, James Mock, Janet Fuller Love, Jenkins, and a few others. So I asked them, I said, we're gonna shut the university down. I said, we do this now. We head down that slippery slope, there's no turning back. We're never gonna graduate, we're never gonna get the job, we damn sure going to jail, and we might get killed. Do you wanna do this? And they said yes. So I just needed somebody behind my back So the other black students, when we got ready to shut it down, we told them, if you can't go to jail or don't want to get beat up, don't come to school tomorrow. We gave them the warning. Then we had some outside influences that wanted to bring some guns and wanted to do it another way. But no, we were determined to do it like Martin Luther King, nonviolent, direct action. And that's what way we were going to do it.
Well, I can't share a college story like that. As I said, I didn't attend a college here. And the German system works differently too. There's a dual system. So the college I attended was a 2-year college. I went there every day, went home. And I only finished the first year. The second year, I really didn't care. I started getting a little in trouble and stuff like that. But in school, I saw a lot that there was a lot of discrimination among the students, not so much from the authority. The authorities learned actually their lesson, what happened in World War II, and what happened with when Hitler was in power and everything. So they knew that they had to fight that. But it's hard. It was very hard for the kids at school to deal with a lot of immigrants that they didn't know. They didn't know anything about the culture. They didn't know anything about the language. It was just a second generation. That was the first generation that was born in Germany. So, and kids can be cruel. And that was harder, I believe, for many immigrants. And I wasn't actually a nice kid to those immigrants either. So, and I grew up actually to dislike immigrants and people that I didn't know. And when I turned my life around when I was about 27, and I decided, hey, I need to take care of my education too. As I said, I graduated, but I didn't finish that certain college. And I had a good chance and became a job recruiter, first without a degree, and I worked with a couple of apprentices. And I decided that I actually want to give kids a chance to not to make the same mistakes I made. Got a degree and got my first apprentice in my own job recruiting company. And one day a probation officer actually came and said, hey, I've got 2-3 young men, they need work. I said, okay. He didn't tell me anything else what was going on. I said, okay, give him the resumes. And he did it on purpose. One certain thing was missing, that they had a criminal background. Most of them had an immigration background. And he didn't tell me that. So, and there was a certain reason for that. So I started getting them work. And after that, he said, it's actually not too, it's good young people, right? I said, yeah, they are. He said, they've been in trouble. 2 of them are on probation, and 1 just got out of probation. You wouldn't have thought that. I said, no, I wouldn't. Said, sorry that I didn't tell you, but there's a lot of prejudices, a lot of stereotypes. Immigrants, they're lazy, they're criminal. And there's a lot of, and since I moved here, I saw a lot of similarities there and with African Americans, what kind of discrimination they face here. And that's also part of my work with my organization Change I have, to help young people, and especially like you, interracial relationships.
Currently, you probably experience a different type of social injustice. Can you share with that? And keep in mind that to my right, there's a lot of wisdom there. So feel free to ask questions. You can interact with each other. We do have an audience, but you're welcome to interact with each other about experiences and such as well.
At Howard was really learning how to advocate for yourself, and the second was learning how to have fun. But the first one, I can think of at least 3 examples that really helped me and were very affirming when I entered like more hostile environments, which is what you're talking about. The first is, and I can recall taking a class, Education in Black America, where our professor, breaks down right after slavery in 1865, only 3% of the country was getting educated. And our assumption was that, the U.S. gave black people education, at least that was my understanding coming in. But we studied and learned that, a lot of the African Americans, a lot of the blacks who fought in the Civil War, they had to learn how to read to be in the military. And when they came back, they taught students and forced the rest of the country to have compulsory education for everyone else. Another example, in one of my classes, we read Columbus's diary. Later on when I attended, Cambridge and Harvard, you still have people who are saying that Columbus discovered America. But if you read his actual words, you can tell that's not even close to being the case. And finally, I had one professor in political science, that was my major, who had 5 PhDs from, politics, psychology, computer science. And he really fought for us when we wrote our papers and submitted them to the national research competitions, and they would ding us. He would go and fight for us and make sure that every single paper got in. We broke down the Star-Spangled Banner, and he's like, this is a Eurocentric reading of it, and this is an Afrocentric reading of it. And so all of these professors were just very affirming in the subject matter. And I found when I later attended PWIs that if I hadn't had that foundation, then it would have been easy for me to get swayed. My roots wouldn't have been as strong, and I've had to use it every day. On the fun side, I think HBCUs have a very specific culture there. You're not gonna see that much diversity in terms of blackness, at least I haven't. In fact, I graduated last week from Harvard, and we had a black graduation. And one of the speakers mentioned, this is the most black people that we've ever seen in one place being educated. And I turned to 2 of my roommates, one who went to Southern, one who went to Morehouse, and we're like, this is like an everyday kind of thing for us. And we took it for granted, but once you move in a different space, you appreciate it more. I mean, you have not just entertainers like, playing basketball with J. Cole or bowling with Migos, but you also have, Michael Eric Dyson and Jeremiah Wright and Cornel West coming to speak in chapel. And so you just have a well-rounded education in how different people can be black in different ways.
Y'all mean to tell me y'all not experiencing any social injustice in 2018 anywhere? At all?
I mean, at Rose, there's always things going on. But when you said injustice, I automatically thought of recent incidents that happened at Rose. One was before I came to Rose, which was the Yik Yak incident. CBU, Rose College, and University of Memphis shared a Yik Yak profile, and some of the students were calling black students at each of the campuses monkeys and gorillas and things of that sort. So that was one of the incidents that happened before I came. And then the incident that happened.
So let me ask you this question. So before you got there, did you know that? And how
No.
You didn't know?
I did not know that.
So how did you feel when you got there and heard about it?
I felt as though Rhodes was trying to hide certain things, which I came to find out which does happen Rhodes. And other universities try to hide certain things from the community so that their name would not be tarnished. But the culture question that you talked about, going to Rhodes from Soulsville was a very dramatic culture shift, mainly for racial reasons. Soulsville is predominantly black high school. Rhodes, as you know, is predominantly 80% white. So it was a huge cultural shift. I found myself, me being very outgoing, always speaking up in class, I found myself the first few weeks actually not speaking up as much, not participating, not learning as much, and because I was very uncomfortable. Very, very, not saying that anybody said anything to me, but this environment did not feel welcoming as my Soulsville environment. But using what Soulsville taught me, I found mentors and pupils of people to have a support system with. So for instance, I picked up my professor, Charles McKinney, Keith Gibson, and so on to guide me because they've been at Rhodes for several years, so they know how to work through the system. And I also found students who've been there a while, such as my friend Justice, who lives with me now, and other students of color who know how Rhodes, how they know your immediate feelings coming into Rhodes, and they know how they can help you with those feelings. So I think mentorship is very important, especially when you're in an uncomfortable situation, looking for people who've been in this situation before and asking them for advice head on, which is something I'm grateful Soulsville taught me about, because there are a lot of students, as I've seen as a senior now, who come into Rhodes and they don't have this support system at home, and they also don't have a support system at Rhodes, and they don't have this outlet of who they don't know who to ask. And luckily, my professor saw me and immediately knew, like, I could tell that you are very uncomfortable in this classroom. How can I help you? Whereas if you don't take certain classes, this was the Africana Studies class, so obviously my professor knew, being in the classroom, like, you're probably uncomfortable. Whereas if you're on a science route, such as biology or chemistry, you might not have experiences because Rhodes does not have that many professors of color. So you might not be meeting professors of color who will understand that you're uncomfortable, whereas someone who is not of color does not. They see you not participating, they just think, oh, that person does not care about learning. So I think those were things that I'm very grateful for that Soulsville implemented into me that I was able to carry into Rhodes, which helped me succeed.
So, Mr. Reed, I'm gonna say this. What you just said parallels Dr. AC's experience, 50 years apart. To me, I don't know about anybody else, but I found some striking parallels between both of your experiences. And I suggest you talk to Dr. AC afterwards, help you navigate that. I know you're a senior, but it's still, it probably
You
help.
always can learn something.
You want to share?
Yeah, I think the importance of mentorship, like you were talking about, is really key. At Smith College, everybody had a big sib and was a big sib to a little sibling. And that was really key, especially in navigating things as someone who hadn't really gone to college before in that way, but I was an adult learner, so I was 20, 25, 26 in a college setting. The other thing at Smith was, and I grew up in Massachusetts, social justice was the norm. It was expected that you would be participating in social justice groups. There was a strike for the food workers on campus because they weren't getting a decent wage, and we all, all the students backed them. When I went to the University of Virginia, I had to, as a teaching assistant, as part of my graduate fellowship, I had to explain to students what social justice was. And there was not a very great understanding of participating in things and leveraging your whatever privilege you have for anybody who might benefit from that. So that was a culture shock in and of itself, is just going to a school and living in Virginia from having lived in Massachusetts, where everybody's a little more engaged. It felt like everybody in Massachusetts was a little more engaged and so at least a little up on things. And in Charlottesville, Virginia, we had a number of incidents as soon as I got there that were troubling, to say the least. So it was difficult to navigate through that. And then in my field work here, my research is that I'm doing my dissertation on the musicians who perform on Beale Street. And I'm constantly having to explain to people that there is just a huge amount of systemic racism against these musicians that's built into the way that they are paid. And they're aware of this. And one of the bands that I play with and do interviews with and am researching, and they're friends of mine, their name is Vince Johnson. This is an all-black band. Vince Johnson and the Plantation All-Stars, because they feel that Beale Street is a neo-plantation system. But nobody gets that. Tourists don't get that when they go see them, and they don't realize that, the tip bucket is all they're making that night. So it's sort of this, having to explain what you're navigating through all the time, and just to go back to having mentors is really key in navigating any environment that you're doing and finding people who can help you.